And as our growing subscribership will know, it's Matt from the Ampod. Yeah, here's an excerpt from a podcast that we recorded a few months ago in the midst of Barbenheimer, the cultural phenomenon. And we are now uploading what we thought about Oppenheimer as it's come out on video on demand. So before we get started, guys, and if you're still with this laborious intro, why don't you just hit subscribe now? Just do it. If you don't like what I've got to say, then you can always unsubscribe towards the end of the episode. But let's hope you don't feel like that's necessary. So please follow, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I think that only means I've got to hand it over to, well, me. Enjoy. So we're back, and this is our thoughts and feelings on Oppenheimer.
B, B, B.
What did you
Is a,
think about it, Tara?
okay, so I have a secret that you don't know about me, and don't be afraid. It's not a bad
Yes.
secret.
Okay. Well,
Okay, so as a nerdy child, my mother and my aunt often took me with them to adult movies, thinking that I would fall asleep or otherwise occupy my time instead of getting
right.
into the movie. And so I saw all the President's Men in the movie way, way before I should have. And it's become one of my all-time favorites. Like I can recite pieces of it. And I just kept thinking, I don't think a film has, I don't want to overstate, but it felt like significant. It felt significant to the point where
Okay.
I will be comparing it to all the President's Men in my head. And for me personally, that is a very big deal.
You were suitably impressed.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I think there were parts that, how can I put it? The things that I thought maybe could have been more clear, I'm not sure how I would have made them clear without getting didactic. So I'm willing to say that there's, some subjectivity and that we have to kind of live with that. But yeah, I'll say some more about subjectivity when we get to the finer points of the movie. But I really enjoyed it and immediately was thinking I could watch this again, like right this minute. Now,
Really?
to be fair, I did what I do before I'm getting on airplanes, which is like limit my fluids hours before so that I won't be uncomfortable. And I was sort of shocked when the credits rolled that I wasn't, doing the bathroom dance
Really?
at that point in my seat. Yes. Yes. And I thought about you because I know that we both like to wiggle a little bit. I thought I
Parkour,
wasn't
yeah.
possibly going to make it, and I kept thinking, I hope I don't pick the wrong scene to run out, but I made it somehow through the 3 hours.
I loved this film and liked it less and less as it went through.
Really?
The first hour, when it was about him getting the team together, what I noticed was how much story had been told in such a short amount of time.
That was my favorite.
I was in raptures about the editing
Mhm.
because I realized we're definitely past the hour mark now. We have to be. So much as story has been told.
The first
And
act was incredible.
yeah, just the editing. I started noticing the cuts, and they were quite rapid. Like no scene before it went to a different location, or it went to, and it wasn't just this guy's talking now, this guy's talking.
Right.
You're talking like 30 seconds between scenes. I thought, wow, if this is going to keep my attention like this for the whole 3 hours.
Then let's do
But
it.
I think what I would have liked to have known. I mean, look, it's in the title, it's Oppenheimer. It is a biopic in every
Mhm.
single meaning. It wasn't about the nuclear bomb. It wasn't about the, excuse the pun, the fallout of that in global terms. But
Oh, good
I
part about
do
the
feel
punch.
that
Yeah.
in the first hour or so that it set the film up a little bit like that because it was a race against the Nazis. It was a race against the Russians.
A race to make us understand how someone could get to that point subjectively, to thinking that creating the greatest weapon could be the fastest path to peace.
But I just feel like it almost slowed exponentially to the point where I felt that the last hour was almost redundant. I know,
Really?
yeah, I did do. I completely switched out. The sound engineering was pristine. The way
Yes.
that a chorus of foot stomping could be turned into the rumblings of an atomic bomb. However, one of my biggest problems with this was the score, and specifically in the third act.
Really?
as I lost interest in the film, and also as the film became more genteel, I liked the espionage part of it in the second act, but the third act was just one room with people, and they were basically saying, we'd like to refer you to Article 3
Mm.
clause, but then it was still going boom, Article 11A B1 boom,
Right.
and
They did do it
I'm
a
like,
lot. You're
this scene just isn't, like, this isn't necessary at this minute in time. The only reason why it's necessary is to add a level of dramatic irony that isn't actually in this scene. And I did find it incredibly frustrating, almost like Return of the King, but it wasn't for 15 minutes. It was an hour's worth of Return of the King postscript.
okay. I'm going to say maybe the nerdiest thing I've ever said here. And that's a lot. That's a high bar. As someone who was unknowingly exposed to theories about revisionist history at an early age, and I didn't realize until I got older that that was a big deal, that I got to find out what that was when I was a teenager instead of an adult and things like that. I felt like that part where it drags for you was where it drove home for me that we are watching revisionist history in progress. So for me, I felt like that it was a necessary pace, like unlike movies that shall not be named that we've talked about before, where we could
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
you where to make the cuts so it wouldn't be so bloated. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that thing that you felt. And I feel like I want to apologize to you because you felt that. Because because I so enjoyed like finally some attention to the fact that um well, ironically, I have to use the word fact again here, that facts don't exist in a vacuum and that they change over
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
the way they did that was really brilliant. And to be fair, subjectively speaking, talking to someone I know in the real world and trying to explain to him why I was excited about seeing the movie, and he's
Yeah,
in
yeah.
his 30s, so he was not a Cold War baby. So I had to explain to him, like, no, there was literally a time when the smartest people in the world thought that if we invented a bigger bomb, we were going to make more peace. And he just was
Mm.
like, explain to me how that happened. I can't understand how that happened. So I was kind of primed for let me see how the case was made after the fact against him.
Uh, one of the other things that I really struggled with, and I don't see that there's consensus online, and strangely, once somebody posts a theory, usually there's a bit of a bandwagon that rolls about what certain things mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One that I've always spoken about in the past is the way that the mental health aspects and, the disbandment of public health and how they abandon people like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker.
Yeah,
But
that's a good point.
I thought it was more about perception, and the way that we watch that film, or the way that we see a Gotham or DC film, is always through the point of either Bruce Wayne or Batman. So we only ever see his point of view, and we don't see maybe the more nefarious side of the Wayne family, if it does exist, and things like that. It's almost like every Batman film we've seen is from an unreliable narrator. And
No,
also
that's a very good point.
what I also saw from that film was that it turns the camera to us and it says, this is what you expected. This is what your interpretations of this world was. And I'm now holding you to account for what you previously
Right.
seen. There's a brilliant bit that I've saw from a Black American comic that's basically done most of the stuff over here since the 80s, called Reginald D. Hunter. And
I know him.
I mean, he's like an Anglophile. Like, he's been here as long as he's been a stand-up comic. But we just like
I need
embraced him as
links.
this. It's just like very sort of like very smooth talking Black American guy, and everybody just loved it because it was so like unfamiliar, but so smooth. Like, he would only have to breathe once, and your trousers would come off. Like, he's that much of a smooth guy.
Okay,
Very.
with that lead in, I need links, sir.
Yeah, also, and he said, I don't know what the lead in was, but he goes, "No, I don't fuck with Batman." And he goes, "What do you
I've
mean?" He
heard,
goes,
oh, was that the guy you sent me?
"Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, he was
yeah."
brilliant in that.
He says, "I don't fuck with Batman." He goes, "Got all that
He
money,
had
all
a
that
point,
power. He doesn't take on the industrialists. He doesn't take on
right?
all this institutional power. He goes and fucks with the guy standing on the corner." He goes,
He was
"Nah,
so on
nah."
point there.
It
Yeah,
was but it was mind blowing. It was like,
it really blew my mind too.
yeah, it's like you're peeking through the windows to the curtains to make sure the thought police aren't going to turn up.
Right. Yeah, because I'm very to look, well, I don't have it near me, but my Batman mug is just out of reach over there that I drink my
Yeah.
coffee out of every morning. And I was just like, whoa, he has a really good point. Well,
Such a
I
good
react,
point.
yeah, it's such a good point. And I never thought about it until he said it. But like now I can't unsee it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's actually quite naughty.
it is. It is. I like it. It's naughty in the best
um,
sort of way.
but with that point of view, I liked that there was an alternative, and I liked
Mhm.
that it was intentionally interpreted with Joker. The thing with Christopher Nolan is, and I think we've seen this from everything since Dark Knight Rises, Inception, that it's too clever by half.
Okay.
It's not there to be understood. It's almost there
It's spectacle.
to be thought of, to be
Yeah.
understood, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah. It's something for you to hold on to and try to work through, but not to
yeah,
grasp fully.
I think there is an element of too clever by half, and I think the middle arc of this is when it started to lose me. I started nodding a little bit, started to get wriggly. I had a fully reclining seat where my legs are straight out in front of me. So
This might be the difference. I did not go all the way back on purpose.
I put myself bolt upright and leant forward with my hands on my knees to try and stick with it.
Oh, wow.
Now,
You really did try.
yeah,
Bless
like
you.
all that gobbledygook that I was just talking about with Joker. The thing with this is, I don't think it was clear what the black and white meant. We're dealing
It
with
wasn't.
three non-consecutive time frames. Now, I've heard that the color stuff is from Oppenheimer's subjective point of view, but
Mhm.
the black and white is through
Sort of the
um,
objective lens of the future,
From Straw's
Straw's
objective
point
point
of
of
view.
view. I've
Mhm.
heard that it is. Sorry, I've combined two different things. I've heard one is just basically one's from Straw's point of view, and one's from Oppenheimer's. I've heard one is to show that the black and white is the documented proof, but the color is the one that is subjective. And I've seen a
Okay.
lot of interpretation.
Oh,
So
that's clever.
when you're
Yeah.
doing non-linear storytelling, I understand that when you put a stinger at the beginning of the film that's not resolved until between the second and third act, that works really well.
Mhm.
When you have a stinger at the end of the first act that's not revealed until the end of the third act, I can understand that. It's kind of choose what mystery you want to use. Are you doing non-linear? Are you doing unreliable narrator against documentation? And the expedience that they introduced new characters. I mean, Jesus Christ, how many Oscar winners, let alone nominated actors, were in this film?
Mind blowing, right? Yeah.
Lord have mercy. It was fucking like Rami
Yeah.
Malek was in it for like 5 minutes.
And of course, when he's on screen, you're like, he's there for a reason. What the hell is he bringing? Do you know what I mean? Not wrong. I don't think you're wrong. I
Was it
have a
Dale
different take
DeHaan
on
as
it.
well? Was it Dale DeHaan? The guy that was in the one with the model that doing the sci-fi like
Was
fantasy
he
thing.
was he the one that was the friend of his that was they were casting aspersions on in the
He
I
was
can't
the
think of his name right
tall,
now.
wispy jazz.
Yeah,
He was also in
that's the guy.
Amazing Spider-Man 2 as Harry Osborn.
Yeah, that's the guy.
I always get Dale DeHaan and Paul Dano mixed up because they're the same sort of
It's
age
hard
and
for me
have
too.
fancy names. But yeah, Dale DeHaan. Like just to have him in there. I mean, he was the next big thing before the abortion of Spider-Man 2. But yeah, wow. Ridiculous. And as you said, Emily Blunt just hanging around in the background.
But
Almost
mind blowing every time she opens her mouth, let's be fair.
almost for the point of delivering a monologue in the final act. She's
Yeah.
secondary.
You don't feel she was a scene stealer? I felt like she was able to steal every scene she was in.
Oh, when she spoke, but
Yeah.
generally, like she was.
But
I
when
mean,
she was just in the background, you're right. Was the
let's say
background.
she was probably in what like 5, 10 minutes of each hour at the
That's
most.
fair.
Like
That's
you're
fair.
talking like 10%, and a lot of
I
the
guess I'm
time,
going by her impact. Oh, I did love her in Devil Wears Prada. I forgot she was in that.
yeah, I forgot she was in that.
Yeah.
Wasn't she the mean one that was actually
Yeah.
like?
She was very cutting in just the best possible sort of way. But yeah, she's very good at allowing herself to play someone that is not, how can I put it, crucial to the narrative, but not necessarily likable. It's not easy to commit to that like she does.
I think sometimes scarcity is what makes things precious. So
Mm-hmm.
there was maybe one or two too many characters that were noticeable in it. Maybe having a forgettable actor in a couple of these roles. I mean, it's outrageous, the cast list. Outrageous.
Well, because
And
let's be fair, when we see someone that memorable, we start thinking they're going to do something memorable, and some of them didn't. We're just happy to be there.
The Florence Pugh character, I mean, that's the whole film in itself. Like, I want to see her
They did not
story.
do her justice. I think, yeah, in a fair world, that would be an entirely different film that just occurs on the side of this film.
That was tragic, tragic. It was compelling and almost tragically flippant. I think it was almost used as a character development tool for
It
Cillian
gave you a
Murphy's
reason to
character.
doubt him as the unreliable narrator, basically.
In one of the hearings, they professed him to be an unrelenting womanizer. That was one of his
Right.
faults.
And they
And
really only say that once, right?
yeah,
But it
yeah.
felt very high impact. Like I felt like that lived with me for the rest of the film. Don't
Jack
you dare
Quaid,
use that against me.
I love
Oh,
seeing
I kept
Jack
waiting for
Quaid.
him to do something
I
big
love it
because
whenever he pops into it, like,
I
yeah,
love him
the
too.
fucking
Yeah, that's me
boys.
too. I was kind of like,
in
woo.
anything he's in, I'm like, yes. And
Sorry.
Benny Safdie was great. I love that he's now making a name of. Hey, don't get me wrong, I love the Safdie brothers films. They are
Mhm.
outrageously tense. They are relentless. Casey Affleck, can't believe it. He's
He
an
was
Oscar
really good
winner.
in that. Yeah.
I didn't even notice who he was in. Did you even recognize Gary Oldman? I didn't see him.
Yes, I did immediately when he was Truman. Yeah.
God, this is just, it's out, like I said, it's just outrageous. Where's Safdie on here again? So he did Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler, which was just brilliant. And before that, he did Good Time, which is the film that made me realize how good an actor Robert
I don't
Pattinson
think I've
actually
seen
is.
that yet. Yeah.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
What's it called again?
His A Good Time, and then the subsequent film was called Uncut Gems.
Oh, I have heard of Uncut Gems, but I haven't seen it yet.
I would be very surprised if they both weren't on Netflix.
I know Uncut Gems is. I don't know about Good Times, but I'm going to find out tonight. They have an interesting group of actors they've worked with. Shia LaBeouf, Sadie Sink.
I didn't realize this. He's more prolific as an actor now. He was in
I
Are
didn't
You
know
There,
that.
God? It's Me, Margaret. He was
Oh, I
in
haven't
Obi-Wan
seen that yet.
Kenobi, the mini TV series. He was in Licorice Pizza, Pieces of a Woman.
When you told me you didn't recognize Casey Affleck, I was a little bit jealous because as soon as I saw him, I thought, oh, he's going to say something big.
Actors with existing notoriety in every role
Not
distracts
waiting for
you
them. Yeah.
because it makes you feel like there should be more to their stories. You're not as fixed on the main story because everybody seems to have purchase in where it's going. Matt Damon's good.
But sort of wasted too.
He's not somebody that is only ever Matt Damon. Eventually, I do just see him as his character, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do know what you mean because I have that issue with Tom Cruise. If I can't see him as character, I can't embrace him.
But he always plays quite similar characters.
That's true. To some
So
degree, played Damon.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't believe we've got as far as I can't believe we've arrived at this point without talking about Robert Downey Jr.
Oh my gosh. Like I didn't know he was even in it, so he really kind of blew my mind. Did you know before you went in
I
to
was
watch?
aware that he was in the film, but I've not really been paying much attention to it all. So when I saw him, I was like, oh,
I either
yeah.
forgot he was in the trailer or saw a trailer without him in it.
None of the actors in this were appointed without an audition, and nobody
Really?
who auditioned knew the part they were playing until they
You're
started
kidding.
filming. So they
Oh,
all
that's a big
auditioned.
deal.
Before filming, he told each of the actors who they were going to be in the film.
Why did I just flash back to like every production I was ever in high school where in retrospect it looked very, they planned the whole thing and put the puppets in their place, but on the outside it felt
Yeah.
like it was wide open. Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, Robert Downey Jr. was probably giving it the performance of his career.
Yeah, he
The
was good.
only thing is, when he emotes out of character. The whole way through, I didn't see him as Robert Downey Jr. However, especially in the third act, when he was emoting, when he was frustrated, when he was angry,
Yeah.
impassioned, I heard bits of Tony Stark, especially in Endgame.
Yeah, and I don't think everybody did, but I know what you're
Mm,
saying. I know what you're
mm,
saying. I have to say that some of my uneasiness with that bit, I chalked up to I'm uneasy with my historical significance of Oppenheimer too. So why
yeah.
not be? Do you know what I mean? I saw it as sort of purposeful ambiguity at the
Mm,
moment. But that might be the part of me that was a film minor talking.
yeah. Did you feel that they glossed over Nagasaki and Hiroshima a little bit?
Yes. I think they tried to get realistic when they had the bit of special effects they used, like when they showed the faces peeling and things like that. But compared to what I really know, they didn't do it enough justice.
Yeah, I found that, and I stepped out on the hour mark and the 2 hour mark, so I think I may have actually missed that immediate moment.
It was
But
just a quick moment where they showed the faces peeling when they did that sound trick that they did repeatedly.
oh yeah, with the
Yeah. The sonic boom is like felt in your
yeah.
toes.
I think with this film, it's open to re-inspection, and I think there will be more value. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not butting back at this being a
No, I
good
don't think you're
film.
panning it. You're just
Not by
talking about the reality of
not
it.
by
Yeah.
not by any stretch. I'm just saying that I've heard a lot of best known, best Robert Downey Jr., Cillian Murphy's a lot for best actor. Like everything has been like whatever parameter is it's been set so far. All I've heard is it's the absolute best. I've heard I really, really had to delve into YouTube to find somebody that said, "Hey, let's take a step back. It's great, but it isn't perfect." And I think that's where I am. I mean, you say that. I mean, Dark Knight Rises and Tom Hardy's performance in that as Bane will forever be perfect.
I was going to say, and your imitation of Bane will, for me, forever
I
be perfect.
fucking love that. I've got to the point now where I can play my favorite scenes and I can do it word for word.
Yes. Well, I will admit on camera something you know in real life, which is that I begged you before to do Bane for me in the real world. So that speaks right there. I don't beg people to do things in general.
Maybe he's wondering why you shoot a man before throwing him from a plane. Nobody cared who I was until I put on the mask. I get so excited even doing that. Oh.
It's perfect. I think that might be the cold open.
Oh my God. Honestly, I know it wasn't played for jokes, but it is funny, but it's also menacing. He went to Christopher Nolan and he said, "Look, we can do the typical bad guy voice, but there's also this Irish gangster in the West End of London in like the 60s and 70s." And he said, "Oh, he speaks a bit like this, and everybody respected him, but he was a bit he was very serious but very frank." And he said, "We can do that, or we can just do it the normal way." And he went, "No, we'll do it your way." And he goes, "Yeah,
Who
the
wants
rest is
normal?
the
We
rest
have
is
that.
history."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, don't have me wrong, that film is fundamentally flawed in the way that they trap the police underground, and the plot vehicles and the escalation are all kind of manufactured and don't kind of make sense in reality. When you're talking about like a city the size, even if it's just the island of Manhattan, it still kind of doesn't make sense. But I love it the most. And Batman's barely in it, or like an hour mark or something.
I need to rewatch it now
I love
because
it.
people have compared them as being his best, and
But
I
that
felt pressure.
just that whole opening scene when they pull the wings off the aeroplane. And I imagine it was all practical because that's Christopher Nolan, isn't it? Like I imagine so. But
Mhm.
anyway, let's get back to the matter at hand because we've been on
We've
for
been
a
us.
couple. Yeah. The one thing that I find very hard to dispute or be contrary with is Cillian Murphy's performance as Oppenheimer. It was breathtaking.
I find his appearance haunting, but I hadn't
Mm.
really given him attention as an actor. Like I need to go back.
It's his piercing blue eyes. How do you make a
They're
villain who can seduce you?
right. Like on some fundamental level, just take you with him wherever he wants to take
Yeah.
you.
And he ate like one almond a day to cut his weight to the size of Oppenheimer to physically embody his persona.
He ate what?
I think it was an almond a day.
Good Lord. That makes sense because he was a wisp
Yeah, he was gaunt, wasn't
completely. And they even make reference to it in the movie.
he? Mm.
Fair. They talk about how like if I can't think of his name, but he's always trying to get him to eat in the movies, and it's not just because he's
Yeah,
trying to offer
yeah,
him comfort,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
because he's like, you need it, take it.
And I like how
Um,
charismatic he was in the first hour. That was one of the biggest draws to me. The way that
Yeah.
they showed like bit by bit how his class was getting better, how his who was the gentleman who ran the lab? What was the actor's name?
Mm, he used to be a heartthrob. There
Oh
was a
God, he
reason.
did used to be a heartthrob, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, good
Hartnett, Josh
grief.
Hartnett. He was in something else recently where I was like, wait, is that Josh Hartnett? And then it's like it disappears from his face. He was so good. Like I never, if you wanted to ask me if he was ever going to become a great character actor, I would have said no possible way. But now,
No
I,
possible way. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
a lot of billboard movies, for lack of a better way to put it.
No, I know exactly what you mean by that. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, popcorn movies. Oh, did we say anything about? Well, yeah, we did kind of talk about it. I think the use of water droplets and subjective light and sound in the movie were all things that stood out to me. Like I felt kind of okay. I'm just going to say it the way I feel it. Sort of pleased with myself when I noticed what they were doing with it.
Mm.
If that makes sense. Does that make sense? And thinking that I didn't waste my film minor completely, but but that probably means it was some sort of you know, what's the word? Probably means it was over the top. The fact that I felt pleased with myself.
Yeah, I did feel like you needed a film major at times to really get to get through it. So
Well, I just kept thinking I need a notebook to pull out and write
yeah,
in, but
yeah,
I was between. I had one single seat between two actual parties of people because it was that crowded, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
just didn't feel free to do any of my usual stuff.
So on the metrics, as previously discussed, do you recommend it or do you not recommend it?
Absolutely recommend it, if only for the purpose of discussion.
Think I would struggle to recommend it to a wider audience.
Really? Okay.
Tim's made the great point before. He wouldn't stop anybody watching it and he'd want to hear what they said afterwards, but he probably also wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
That is a different thing. I did think about some particular friends that I don't know if I'd want to see them to see this without briefing them first. So that
Yeah.
is pretty conditional, I guess.
Yeah. If someone said to me, what films do you want to watch? I'd go, well, what have you seen? but
Right. There was that.
and then I'd find something. But if they said to me, we're going to see Oppenheimer, do you reckon it's worth seeing? I'd go, yeah, yeah, go and see it. But it wouldn't be
Yeah.
the one that it wouldn't be the top of the list for me.
I do feel like there's some people I would want to debrief, but I really enjoyed it personally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo. What a heady episode, hey.
That was a great bit of lifting that we just did together.
Wasn't it
But
indeed? We'll call it a day there. So remember, people, if you've listened to the end, and indeed to the end, then please hit subscribe, throw us a like, tell people about how wonderful I am, tell people how truly magnificent Tara is, share, like, comment. We are the End Pod One Shot on YouTube. We are the End with Spank Media. If you search for all four, then you'll get past all the erotica and you will find us sooner or later on that
it's
list.
worth it. It's
Yep,
worth
yep. So Instagram,
special sort
Twitter,
of spank.
yeah, oh, very much so. The End underscore pod. If you'd like to just say goodbye to everybody, Tara.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Indeed, thank you very much indeed, Tara, for making it onto the episode. It has been an absolute delight and a pleasure, as it always is, to be in your company as a friend, as a colleague, and maybe one day a lover. I am Matt. I am the regular co-host, one of the regular co-hosts of the End podcast. And that leaves me one thing to say. We have been, and this is the End.
I will pay you money if you let me say that line one day. I really want to say
uh,
that.